I always thought San Diego sunlight could wash away anything. Stress. Doubt. Bad memories. But on that Tuesday morning, as the first warm rays spilled through the blinds of our condo in Little Italy, something felt wrong. Tangibly wrong. The kind of wrong that crawls under your skin before your mind even knows what it's afraid of. My name is Eric Collins, 41 years old, owner of a small but steady home renovation company. My wife, Julia, 36, worked in healthcare administration at UC San Diego Health, organized, calm, one of those people who seemed built for responsibility. 10 years of marriage. 8 years in San Diego. A home we built together. And yet that morning, standing in the doorway of our bedroom, watching her tie her hair into a neat low bun, I felt a crack in the glass of our life. It started with a scent. A faint trace of cologne I didn't recognize. Not mine. Not anything I'd smelled in our home before. She froze for a second when she noticed me watching in the mirror. Just half a second, but long enough. Her pupils tightened. Her breath caught. Then she smiled like nothing had happened. "Morning, babe," she said, slipping her earrings in. "You're up early." I opened my mouth to ask where she had been last night, but I didn't. I told myself I was imagining things. She'd said she had paperwork to finish at the hospital. She'd come home late before. But that cologne. "Yeah," I said, clearing my throat. Woke up and couldn't fall back asleep. She walked past me, brushing my arm lightly. Her movements were too careful. Too calculated. Julia always moved with natural ease, not like this. Something had changed. And I couldn't name it yet, but I could feel it. Outside, the city was waking, vendors setting up at the Mercado Farmers Market, the smell of roasted coffee drifting from the corner cafe, seagulls calling overhead near the harbor. Usually, mornings like this made me grateful to live here. But instead of peace, all I felt was a dull throb of anxiety in my chest. Julia left early. Too early. And I watched from the window as she walked to her car. She looked over her shoulder twice, checking something. Or checking if I was watching. Her phone never left her hand. The moment she drove off, the silence in the condo suddenly felt like a vacuum. I made myself coffee, sat on the balcony overlooking the waterfront, and told myself I was being paranoid. Couples go through phases. People get distant sometimes. But the truth was simpler and more brutal. My wife had started living in a world I no longer had access to. And I didn't know why. That evening, she came home unusually cheerful, overcompensating cheerful. Her eyes were bright. Her voice lighter than normal. "Long day?" I asked, trying to be casual. "Insane," she laughed. "Just non-stop chaos. You know how it is." Except she didn't look exhausted. She looked energized. Like someone carrying a secret. During dinner, her phone buzzed twice. She glanced at it quickly, face tightening, then flipped it face down. I watched her fork pause mid-air. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah. Just work." But she didn't take a bite. She put the fork down and pushed her food around like she wasn't hungry. A second buzz. This time, she didn't look, but her neck flushed slightly pink. I'd known Julia for 12 years. I'd held her through panic attacks, through the miscarriage, through career changes and promotions and sleepless nights. I knew every version of her. This version was lying. She fell asleep instantly, or pretended to. Her back was turned to me, shoulders curled protectively inward. At midnight, I woke to the faint glow of her phone screen. She was in the bathroom, door cracked slightly, whispering. Not panicked. Not stressed. Soft. Warm. Too warm. Like lovers do. "Yeah. I miss you too." The word slid under my ribs like a blade. My throat closed. My hands froze on the sheets. I didn't move until I heard the toilet flush, water run, and Julia slipped back into bed. She smelled faintly of mint gum and something sweeter. I stayed awake until sunrise. Her laughter. Too soft. Her excuses. Too quick. Her phone always on silent. And the cologne, faint, but there. The world around me became sharper, colors too bright, sounds too loud. San Diego, with its endless sunshine, had turned into a stage where I was the only one who didn't know his lines. And the more I watched, the more I noticed. New lingerie in the drawer. A small bruise on her collarbone she said was from bumping into a cabinet. Her sudden obsession with going to the gym every evening. Her hair styled differently. Her perfume changing to something lighter, younger. All tiny threads weaving into one truth I was terrified to touch. Julia was slipping away. Or had already slipped, weeks ago, without me realizing. It was Friday when I finally saw the message. She'd left her laptop open before running to grab something from the car. A calendar reminder popped up in the corner of the screen. 7 p.m., J, at La Valencia Hotel. La Valencia. In La Jolla. The most romantic, expensive boutique hotel in the area. A place with ocean view suites, dim hallways, and champagne always waiting on ice. My stomach dropped into my shoes. I clicked the reminder. A note was attached. Same suite as last time. Can't wait. My vision blurred. My heart felt like it was tearing in slow motion. And in that moment, San Diego sunlight outside the window suddenly looked cold. I closed the laptop, sat down on the couch, and stared at the wall for what felt like hours. There it was, the truth. Not a suspicion. Not a fear. A fact. My wife was meeting someone tonight. In a hotel. In our city. In a suite they'd used before. And she was excited. There's a moment, right after your world collapses, when everything goes eerily still. Like your brain hits a reset switch it never meant to press. That was me at 6:32 p.m., sitting on the edge of our couch, holding my car keys without realizing I'd picked them up. The world outside our condo window, boats gliding across the bay, people laughing below on India Street, all of it blurred into a distant hum. The only thing I could hear was the echo of Julia's reminder in my head. Same suite as last time. Can't wait. I didn't know how to breathe, but somehow I stood up. Somehow I walked out the door. Somehow I started the engine of my truck. And somehow, with my pulse hammering so hard I could feel it in my teeth, I drove toward La Jolla. The sun was low, sliding into the Pacific in a blaze of orange and deep red. San Diego evenings were normally my favorite: cool breeze, palm trees trembling slightly in the wind, the soft smell of saltwater in the air. Tonight it all felt like mockery. Traffic crawled on I-5 North. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles went pale. My thoughts spun like a wheel stuck in mud. How long? Who is he? Why wasn't I enough? What did I miss? Why didn't she tell me she was unhappy? But under all that, there was a darker, quieter question. What am I about to see? Every mile tightened the invisible rope around my ribs. By the time I took the La Jolla Parkway exit, my chest felt like it was caving in. The pink facade of La Valencia rose above me like a postcard, Mediterranean arches, glowing lanterns, bougainvillea climbing up the walls. A place made for romance, secrets, and expensive promises. I pulled into a parking spot across the street, killed the engine, and sat there in the silence. Cars passed behind me. Waves crashed faintly in the distance. My hands were trembling. This wasn't who I was. I wasn't the type to spy, to sneak around, to spy on my own wife. But I also wasn't the type of man who deserved betrayal. I checked the dashboard clock, 7:03 p.m. She was inside. Right now. With him. A metallic taste filled my mouth. I swallowed it, opened the door, and stepped out. La Valencia's lobby smelled of orange blossoms and polished wood. Soft jazz played overhead. Couples lounged on velvet chairs, sipping wine, leaning close in candlelight. Every detail stabbed me. At the front desk, a young woman in a navy blazer smiled. "Good evening, sir. How can I help you?" I swallowed. "Hi. My wife checked in about 10 minutes ago. Julia Collins. I forgot my wallet in her car, I just need the room number." She typed quickly, then paused. "I'm sorry, sir. I don't see a Julia Collins registered." My stomach dropped. Of course. Julia wasn't using her real name. The receptionist waited. Maybe under a different last name? Or perhaps she booked through her companion. The word companion hit like a punch. I exhaled slowly and forced myself to answer calmly. "Right. She might be under another name. Could you check for any recent reservations for a Julia or Jay, arriving around 7 p.m.? The receptionist hesitated, then nodded. "One moment." She scrolled through something on her screen, then her eyes flickered in recognition. "Ah. Yes. Suite 312. Under the name Jordan Hale. Joined shortly after check-in by a second guest. Jordan Hale. A name I had never heard before, but already hated. "Thank you," I said, barely recognizing my own voice. Suite 312 was on the 3rd floor. I didn't wait for the elevator. I climbed the stairs 2 at a time, heart punching inside my chest. The hallways were dim, lined with deep red carpet and wrought iron sconces. Every footstep felt like a countdown. At the door to the 300 wing, I slowed. The corridor was empty. Silent. I walked down it, reading numbers. 308. 310. 312. A pale strip of warm golden light seeped from under the door. Voices floated through the thick wood, muffled, indistinct, but unmistakably intimate. My throat tightened. I couldn't breathe. I stepped closer, pulse roaring in my ears. And then I heard it clearly. Julia's laugh. Soft. Playful. A version of her I hadn't heard in years. It felt like someone reached inside my ribs and tore something vital out with their bare hands. I could walk away. I could pretend. I could go home and tell myself I hadn't heard anything. But the truth was right there. Tangible. 2 feet from me. I raised my hand. I knocked. The voices inside went dead silent. For a second, the entire hotel seemed to freeze. Then footsteps approached. Slow. Cautious. The door cracked open 2 inches. A man's face appeared first, tall, dark eyes, early 40s, athletic build. He looked like someone from a lifestyle magazine, polished, confident, the kind of man who'd never been ignored in his life. His expression shifted instantly when he saw me. Shock. Recognition. Fear. Then Julia appeared behind him, wrapped in a white robe. Her hair down. Her cheeks flushed. And when her eyes landed on me, she didn't scream or gasp. She just froze. The way guilty people freeze when the world stops giving them hiding places. "Eric," she whispered, her voice cracking. I stared at her, at the robe, the bare skin at her collarbone, the room behind her glowing with soft golden light, the champagne bottle on the table, the bed sheets pulled back. Something inside me shattered so loudly I thought the whole hallway could hear it. But I kept my voice calm. Very calm. "Julia," I said. "We're going home." She blinked, stunned. "Eric, wait, I can explain." I shook my head. "No. You can explain later." Get dressed. The man stepped forward slightly. This isn't your business, man. I turned my head toward him, and in that moment, something dark and controlled settled over me. It becomes my business, I said quietly, when he's sleeping with my wife. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Julia looked between us, panic rising in her eyes. Eric, please, just let me talk. Get dressed. Not yelled. Not whispered. Just final. After a long moment, she nodded slowly and closed the door. I stood there in the hallway, alone, listening to the hurried rustling, the whispered argument, the clicking of suitcases. Every second carved a deeper wound. Finally, the door opened again. Julia stepped out, fully dressed, face pale, mascara smudged at the corners. The man stayed behind her, arms crossed, jaw tight. I didn't say a word to him. Didn't have to. I turned and walked down the hall. Julia followed. And for the first time in my life, I didn't hold the door for her.